Well, if you want me to, I can go ahead and shift into, I can tell you a little bit about my testimony.
Sure.
And it's in the book, but I'm from Texas. I was raised in a small town called Paris, Texas, and I had never been out of Texas. I lived my whole life there and never really left the state unless I was visiting family, but only in Louisiana. So still
Okay.
very close. Um, but whenever I was about 16 and 17, I started just like I just started experimenting with things like smoking and alcohol and things like that. And I had been raised in church my entire life. So I just started experimenting with these things and had a lot of shame about it, but I just was really compelled to rebel against my parents, and I went down a really really rough road. By the time I had graduated high school, I had started smoking weed and doing other drugs as well. When I graduated, I moved to a town about an hour and a half away um, to go to college, and whenever my safety net was removed, that those people around me that thought I was cool and thought I was a cute girl, and mommy wasn't there anymore and daddy was far away, I really just started spiraling. Like it was just I didn't I was like I was extremely depressed. um I wasn't sleeping well, and I my self-esteem just like plummeted. I didn't know who I was anymore because these people that had once told me that I was good and worthy weren't there anymore to tell me I was good and worthy anymore. So I went from experimenting around with those I wouldn't say smaller because it's still a big deal, but maybe possibly less harmful things. And I started going into some deeper addictions. I started doing cocaine and abusing prescription pills like Xanax and some others that were for anxiety and things like that. But I was abusing them, and at one point I actually overdosed, and that was an all-time low for me, but it really sadly wasn't the wake-up call that I really needed. Whenever that happened, my dad, I just went off the grid. I went off the grid for about a week, and I didn't like respond to any of my dad's calls or any of that because I was really ashamed, and I just kind of really wanted to not exist anymore. It wasn't that I was thinking of killing myself. It was just like, I am really, really hopeless. Maybe I could just disappear and I'll just go start a new life. I don't know what I was thinking really, but maybe I'll just go start a new life or something. So, but my dad basically tracked me down. He came looking for me because I wasn't answering my calls, and um, you know, when he found me, he was really, really disappointed with all the things that I had done. And he was disappointed at the choices that I had started making and when he found out about the stuff that I was doing. But he, um, he moved me back to my hometown, and I moved in with my grandmother. And during that time, things really didn't get any better. They just basically spiraled to worse because I was now surrounded with my old friends again. But I had all this baggage that I was bringing back, and all these new drugs that I had discovered, and all this shame that I was bringing back from all the bad choices that I had made while I was high, and all these things. So I was back with my old party friends, but we were partying with much heavier things than we had ever partied with before, back in the days when we were just in high school. I started abusing meth, and that was when things really just, I mean, it was really going out of control. I don't know if I would have lived much longer had not the path been interrupted. But um, during this time of like binge, binging out on meth and just staying strung out for like weeks at a time, I found out I was pregnant. And for me, that was devastating. I was devastated at the time. I was just like, It was the most horrible thing that I could ever have thought of would happen to me. Obviously, that's totally skewed
Well, just
perception.
for understanding,
Yeah,
being pregnant while in that lifestyle, or just in general at that time of your life,
in
getting
general,
pregnant
at that
was,
time in my life.
yeah, okay.
To me, at that time, it was the worst thing that could happen to me. I didn't understand it at the moment, but it was the best thing. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me. So I, in my immaturity and my disillusionment, I was just like, I've just got to get things back to normal. I just need to get things back to normal. I'll get back in school, but I can't do all this pregnant. And so I actually started asking questions about abortion, and I started asking different people, like where I go to get an abortion. And I was, in my mind, I was planning on doing that. I had made up my mind, I'm going to do this. And someone recommended me. They gave me a piece of paper and it had an address on it, and they were like, "Hey, go to this address and they can help you." And I was like, "Great! I'm going to go here and get an abortion. This is going to be exactly what I need to get back in my life on the right path." So I made an appointment and I went to that place. And when I got there, there was a lady there that started talking to me about Jesus. And I was so angry. I was just like, this is not what I need to hear right now. So I got up and I was just like, I know who Jesus is. And if you knew him, you would know that he doesn't even like me right now. And I stormed out of the place. Like, I was just the ideal, stereotypical angry teen. And I wasn't even a teenager. I was 20, but still very immature in my thinking. So I stormed out of there. And I know, I mean, I wasn't in the room obviously after I left, but I know that she hit her knees and started praying for me. And I know that she contended and cried out to the Lord on my behalf, because I could not scratch up the money for anything. I just couldn't come up with the money to get this abortion that in my mind I needed so badly. I had the enemy telling me that I was the scum of the earth. In my mind, no child deserved to be born to me, and that my baby would be better off in heaven, even if that meant that I did something that my conscience wasn't clear about. It was like I hated myself. I just hated myself, and I didn't want to bring another life into this mess because I wasn't even very good at taking care of myself. So those were the thoughts that was swirling in my mind. The enemy really just like put all these thoughts in my head, and I just accepted them as true. But when I realized that I wasn't going to be able to come up with the money, I decided to just try to make the best of it. So I went back to this place that I had went before, the address that someone had given me, because while I was there, they had told me about parenting classes that they had. So the deal was that if I go and watch these parenting classes, they give me this thing called a mommy dollar. And with mommy dollars, I can buy things in their boutique. In their boutique, there were diapers and clothes for babies and different things that would be very practical for a mom to have. So I go back, watch these parenting videos, and I've watched all of them. I go and I go regularly. Every day I go and I watch these parenting videos. And after I was done watching all the parenting videos, that same little lady told me, "Well, you know, we have a Bible study here on Tuesdays. And if you come to that, it's $3 mommy." And I was like, "What? $3 mommy?" She was like, "Yeah, and there's dinner." I said, "Okay, I'll be there for that." $3 mommy and dinner. I think I can endure a Bible study for that, you know, and my background, my mindset was very legalistic religion. So I was expecting that. I was expecting that environment when I go to this Bible study. But when I showed up, there's this lady named Michelle. And I got to know Michelle, and it was a Bible study. It was amazing. And Michelle would let us ask questions, and she would go through and like explain what scripture means to us, and like how we could apply it to our lives and things like that. And Michelle talked about God in a way that I'd never heard anybody else talk about him. She explained to us that God loved us no matter what, and that we were accepted and loved by God. Like, he was crazy about us. And she would go on and on about how much God loved us. And this was groundbreaking for me. I never heard anything like it. And to me, I was very skeptical because I was just thinking, I don't know if this lady knows God very well because that's not anything what I've heard about him. Like, I don't know, maybe that's really too good to be true. I don't think that can be the same God that I read about, that I've heard about. It's probably a little more accurate because my reading was not extensive at that time. And so I went to these Bible studies and I would go and learn and learn and learn, but I during that stretch of time, I never really could fully embrace what she was saying because I was so skeptical if that could be really God's opinion about me, that he really truly did love me and that he would just receive me as I was. And so I tried really hard to taint Michelle's opinion of me. I would tell her like the horrible things that I did, and I'd be like, and I did this, and but Michelle had what I like to call gloves off love. Like if you were to lose your cell phone and they threw it in a trash can and you wanted me to go through that trash can with you to find the cell phone, I would insist on wearing gloves because we're digging through trash and it's kind of dirty. But unfortunately, we as Christians sometimes treat people that are non-believers just like that. We need our gloves on in order to deal with them. Like, ooh, you got some stuff there that's not so pretty, and I don't know that I want to get dirty in your mess. But Michelle was just like, I just felt like she was willing to dive into my big trash can with me because my life, I had made a mess. I'd made a huge mess. I'd wronged people that loved me. I had lied to people for drug money. I had just the fact that I had been wanting to have an abortion brought shame on me because I knew what it was. I knew the ramification. I knew, and yet I considered myself to be so disgusting because I would even consider it. So it was just like I was just had layers of shame on me. Well, the time passed, and I wasn't sure if I could completely grasp what Michelle was saying, but I decided I really wanted to clean my life up. Okay, so I started going to this Bible study, and I started going to church. When I had my son, I gave birth. 3 days later, I was in the hospital room and I was turning pages in his baby book, the little baby books where you write all their stuff in, like how fat they were and stuff like that. But I got to the section about the father. Like there was a mother, you tell about yourself, and then you tell about daddy. And I realized the heavy truth was that there wasn't going to be a happy daddy in the picture. There was no husband waiting for me. There was no dad waiting for mommy and baby to happily take her home. There was nobody going to be in our life like that. And it was just like the reality, the heaviness of the situation just hit me. And so I started to cry. During that time where I started to cry, I didn't have language for it at the time, but I literally felt God step in the room. Now I understand that God is present everywhere, but I felt like God himself had walked in the room, like in full form, like intense presence of God. I just felt like, oh my God, he's here. And I heard him tell me, I love you. And that he just simply spoke, I love you. And I was like, it was just like my breath felt like it was sucked out of me just because I was just so in awe of what he was saying to me. And I was thinking, how could you? And in that moment, God brought me in a memory. It was probably a vision, although I didn't really have a grid for it at the time. It was like a flashback to a memory that I'd had. And in this memory, this was the worst day of my whole life, okay? The worst thing I'd ever done. The worst day, most shameful. I did things that I had truly regretted, like disgusted even myself. And I said to God, why would you show me that? And he said, I loved you then. And it was just like the floodgates of tears had opened up. The ugly cry commenced. The kind where you have like boogers and stuff.
Sure.
And
I don't know. I've
like,
never done that.
okay.
Just kidding.
I was completely undone. I just knew that he loved me at that moment. It was just like, okay, if he loved me then, he could love me now. Because I'm certainly not in as bad of shape now as I was then. And I just wept before the Lord, and I just sat in His presence. When I had calmed down from all this, I flipped the pages and I turned to the back of the baby book where there's an open section for you to write, and I wrote a letter to God. Now, I don't know why I didn't just speak this out into the room. I have no idea, but I'm glad I wrote it because now I remember it, you know. And I wrote a letter to God, and it was like, God, I have made the biggest mess there ever could be. And I don't know what I'm going to do, but I give this whole mess to you, and whatever you want to do, just do it. I love you. I want you. I want a part of this kind of message to God. Just like, I've never repeated a gospel prayer after anybody, but I've had plenty of emotional experiences at an altar kind of thing. But this was so different because I just knew that He loved me, and I knew that He wanted me, and He wanted me to be His daughter, and that He was willing to accept me the way I was, even in the mess that I was in. And, you know, it impacted my life forever because I learned that the grace of God will meet anybody, everywhere, anywhere. But the grace of God just doesn't leave you there. It doesn't leave you there in the mess. Like he walks us through this beautiful journey where he sets us up right, and we're clothed in His righteousness, and He begins to teach us His ways and teach us His thoughts, and show us the depths of His love, and it's amazing. And so I fell radically in love with God that day, and people said, "Oh, that'll fade. She'll calm down one day." And they were wrong because I've never calmed down about my love for God, and I've just fallen more and more in love with Jesus every day since then. And I have a real passion to see other people who have been rejected by like normal, not normal. I don't want to accept that as normal, but religious Christianity, like that whole like legalistic world that is full of the elite, and the unbeliever isn't welcome, or the very different outcast type of strange personality isn't welcome. So that's my heart.
Or like really handsome people like me are not welcome because I intimidate people who are, you know, not as good look. No, just
there you go.
Right. I'm just trying to add some lightness because that's some serious, powerful stuff.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. I mean, you know, I've watched one of your videos, or I think the video on your site that's just a few minutes about your testimony, and so I thought, yeah, we're going to talk about our testimony, but some of the details, some of the journey, that's some powerful stuff. I'm curious and I'm interested to learn. Okay, connecting the dots from that point to how you're where you're at now, co-pastoring. You know, we kind of talked about authoring. I'd be curious, like a few more steps of that journey to more recently, if you have some time.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I got saved, radically in the hospital, I started going to church. Well, I was already going to church, but I started really putting my heart into it, and I was just like, dude, this is amazing. I was like seeing life in Technicolor. But I have been a leader since the moment I got saved because I just wanted to tell everybody about what had happened to me. I just wanted to tell people about this encounter that I had with the Lord. So I began going to church. It's very legalistic church that I grew up in. It's still pretty close to the same, but but not for long because I'm praying for them. But I began to do children's ministry, and that was the place where I was serving. And I met my husband a year after I got saved, and I met him online. We actually met on a Christian dating website, which is kind of funny.
That happens these days. It's fine.
Yeah, it was so funny the way it happened, but I don't know if I would tell other people, yes, I believe in love at first sight, but I know that I was truly captivated by him very first time.
There's listeners listening who want to know what website. They're like,
I don't
hey,
recommend that website.
It worked for them. I'm going to, you know.
Oh my goodness. It was such a horrible website because there were people from other countries that were like scouting other people so that they could get like green cards, I'm assuming. I don't really know how this works, but it was like I was getting messages like, "Hello, most marvelous eyes woman who makes my heart," and I was like, I don't know if this is for real or not. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? So, so we met online, and we had kind of like a whirlwind relationship because I just loved him from the start, and he loved me from the start, and we were probably both really naive, but we did hear the Lord too, and so that is what is very, very important. Because I can admit that I was naive, but I can also admit that I could hear the Holy Spirit talking to me, and so could he. Even as, probably pretty immature people, we knew the voice of the Lord from very early on. And so we wanted to get married, and we actually knew each other 6 months when we got married. I don't recommend for everybody to do that, but if you hear the voice of the Lord and you want to act on that, I say it's between you and the Holy Spirit.
Wow.
But we loved each other, and so we got married. We became youth pastors just like maybe 2 months after we were married. I had been leading in the church that I had was a part of, but this was a little bit more responsibility than I had been used to. But we stepped into that, and we were youth pastors for about a total of a little over 5 years. Um, Now, that in and of itself was its own little journey. The average youth pastor only lasts like 8 months
Well,
at one.
have you ever heard the joke, how many youth pastors does it take to change a light bulb? None. They're never around long enough for the light to go out.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, we did hear that one a lot. So the average life expense, not life expectancy, we won't go there. We won't even go to that part. But we were at our first location for a year and a half, which is like, an old timer in youth pastor years. But so we did move around. We they weren't able to keep us on as the youth pastors any longer because of some budget constraints, and so we moved on. And we had our little ups and downs and journey that really molded us, and God used to really teach us and grow us as leaders, and really grow us in our identity as children of God. And the Lord took me from striving and performance based leadership, where I was performing, and so I expected other people to perform. So I was not the most happiest youth pastor. It was like, your shirts are too short and you're not supposed to be wearing that shirt, kind of thing. Like, yeah, we do need guidance, something somewhat like that, but it probably needs to be a lot more gentle and in the context of a relationship, which I wasn't getting at the time because I was performing. I felt that I was having to perform for God's approval, whereas he was trying to get me to abide.
Hmm.
He was trying to get me to just be a daughter and just be. Um, but I went on a journey there. Joyce Meyer's books really helped me a lot in this area because it was like she was a lot like me, and she had struggled with the same things that I had struggled with, was like anger and like controlling behavior and things like that. So that was really helpful to me. Her books were amazing. And but I started to become free from these things, and I started to experience freedom from worry and freedom from depression and things like that. Um, if we fast forward the story a little bit down the road, we ended up in Oklahoma as youth pastors. And this was like the ideal youth pastor scenario because we had like the coolest, it wasn't just a youth room. Like, it wasn't like they put us in a closet somewhere. Like, typically what we see with sometimes happens with the youth at the church. It's like, here, we're not using this classroom anymore. You guys paint the walls black and do something fun, like
Right.
whatever. And it wasn't like that at all. We had this huge youth facility, and it was nicer than the adult sanctuary. There was a stage. We had PlayStations. There was an indoor basketball cage. There was a cafe. It was amazing. It was like the perfect youth facility, and we were there for about, I think, 10 months. I'm probably getting some numbers wrong. My husband's probably in the other room thinking, no, it was 7.5 or something. I don't know. Um, But
He's texting you right now
yeah,
going,
he's gonna text me. Well, my phone is off,
oh, I
so.
gotcha. Yeah.
um, but my husband came to me one day and he was like, Amber, I believe God's calling us to plant a church. And I was like, oh my Lord, this man's gone crazy. Like, I was just like, sorry. I don't really want to talk about this. I'm happy. Why do you always want to change things? That's what I was thinking. I was just like, I don't want to talk about this. Please just forget you ever thought that. And let's just enjoy life, please. And he was like, well, just pray about it. Okay. Pray about it and we'll talk about this. We'll just put a pin in it and we'll talk about it again later. And I was just like, I'm not going to pray about anything about this. Like, I just had a horrible attitude. I was just like, I don't want to pray about this because honestly, I didn't want to know the truth because I did not want it to change. I didn't want to move again. I didn't want to disrupt our lives. I wanted to put roots down right there. That's what I wanted. And so I, it was like, it was bothering me. I wouldn't even at the time admit that it was God trying to speak to me. I was just like, this idea is bugging me, like, but it was the Lord. Looking back, I know it was the Lord, but I was in denial at the time because I really didn't want to do it. I did not want to move and I did not want to plant a church. I was just like, no way. I do not want that kind of responsibility. And, the idea bothered me. And so one day I was so frustrated I was frustrated actually with the Lord, but I was also, because I felt like he was kind of nagging me a little bit, like, because the idea was just rolling back up over and over. And I'm like, oh, okay, God, I'm going to need like a sign. I'll just be Gideon for a moment. I need a sign. And I was really at a broken place because I was just like, um, I think I might be disobedient right now, like, and that broke my heart because I had always said, Lord, you say where and I'll go. I don't care if it's China. I've never been called for a mission work, but I was just like, I don't care where it is. I'll go there. I don't care if it's dangerous. I'll do it, whatever it is. But there God was calling me to somewhere pretty safe because Renee is my husband's name. Renee was telling me, he was really specific. He was like, I think God's calling us to Virginia to plant a church, like, and I was just like, well,
Virginia, like a city in northern Siberia?
no, Virginia, like, sorry,
Yeah, I know. I'm just messing with you.
United States, on the East Coast. So I told the Lord, all right, well, I need a sign. And I don't recommend anybody to pray exactly what I prayed. And I wouldn't do the same way if I had it to do over because I told the Lord, God, if this is what you want, then I want to want it too. I need to not love this so much. I want to be able to embrace that. And God knew exactly what that meant, but I did not know what that meant at the time. But it was like everything started flying out of control. It was just like there were people who even now I know that these are people of God, but we're just acting like crazy, like everything was going wrong. The pastor's wife, or well, she co-pastored, so she showed up in our services with like a clipboard taking notes, and that is never a good thing when people are taking notes on clipboards. So I was just like,
especially if they're stopping you at the mall and they've got one. No, anyway.
yeah, that's even worse. Well, so in the back of the sanctuary taking notes during our service with a clipboard, and I'm like, this isn't good. And so there were other little situations and flare ups where I was just like, there has been a shift. There has been a shift take place, and I don't think we're supposed to be here anymore. Like, that's what I was thinking. So I just I went before the Lord. I was crying because I'm letting go of this thing that I loved that's not the same anymore, because the only reason it wasn't the same anymore is because I wouldn't let go of it. And the Lord was trying to show me in a nice way, and then I needed this crazy sign in order to be able to let go. So I came home, my eyes were swollen from crying and puffy, and I told Renee, I was like, we got to quit. We got to move. We got to do what God asked us to do. I was just like, I want to obey the Lord. I don't care about giving 2-week notices anymore. I just want to obey. I want to obey. And so, of course, my husband, he'd been thinking about it a little longer, so he was probably a little more level-headed than me. So he's just like, okay, we're gonna actually quit the right way. He was a little more rational, and I was just like, what the Lord says goes over man's tradition. I was like, ready to just like just take our backpack on our backs and march to Virginia, and he was a little more well thought out. He was thinking more like a U-Haul. So practical. I'm happy for that.
So-
Praise the Lord. So we did. We put in our notice and we were just like, we've got to do this. And so we moved to Virginia. We actually moved in my mother-in-law's basement and we lived there for almost a year. Good times. Um,
that was convincing.
whew. Well, I think that it was very challenging at times, but there was a grace for it when it was what we were supposed to be doing. So, but it was very trying. It was challenging too, and it grew. It matured both of us, I'm sure. But I can definitely speak for myself and say that it matured me to live. It was humbling. I can say that for a fact. It was very humbling. But we started looking for a house, and we started looking for jobs. And what we found was that there was a town nearby called Winchester, which is where we live now, and it seemed to be like a small town feel, but some amenities of living in a larger town, like a mall and a Chipotle and a Starbucks that I'm very fond of. Just to thank the Lord for those comfortable amenities right now. But anyways, we moved to Winchester. We prayed about it, and so we're about 3 years into our church planting journey, and it's very, very rewarding. I had like these ideas in my head about what it was going to be and what it was not going to be, but I found that the journey to doing this and enjoying it has been putting out of our head like preconceived notions about, well, this is what women who are pastoring with their husbands do. This is how they are. They're in the children's ministry, or we have these like possible stereotypes that we think. And one of the most liberating things for us in church planting has been to push all those out of our head and say, okay, how did God make me? What are the gifts he gave me? What are the gifts he gave you? Like, well, I know that this church teaches a church planting 101, but how is God calling us to do this? What is the Holy Spirit saying? I know how it's been done before, but what are we going to do, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So that's where we're at now. And my husband and I both lead as co-pastors in our church. We have different, I wouldn't call them jobs, and I don't even know if I would say the word roles, but we're both over different departments. We both lead differently, very differently, and quite frankly, we're at a place where we've found a very smooth rhythm, and we really enjoy it. Now that I've said that, we'll have to change our rhythm. No, I'm just kidding.
God's going to call you to something else now, just like the youth pastoring thing.
Well, when he does,
Right.
we'll have a heart that is open to it because there is such bliss and obedience. It's like sometimes we have this like spoonful of something and we're like, this spoonful of something that I've been given, it's amazing, it's awesome, it's mine, and I love it and I want it. And God will call us to lay it down. And he's not mean, he's not bad at all. He calls us to lay it down, and we're like, no, 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 this is mine. And we'll even convince ourselves that, oh, well, I didn't hear God, I'm going to push it completely out, even though we knew he called us to do it. But what happens is that when we take this little spoonful of something and we lay it down, what God does is he has the shovel and he's like, and
Right.
he hits us with 20 times of whatever it was that we laid down. It was like he just wanted us to surrender it.
Right.
He just wanted us to lay it down, and he wanted to give us something even better back.
Right. That's like with my daughter, right? She's 2, and maybe it's time to take her like somewhere that we know she's really gonna like. And we're like, okay, let's go, Jimmy, let's go. And she won't like let go of like some little toy she's got in her hand. We're like, no, we're gonna go somewhere better. No, no. It's like she has no sphere that there's
Yeah.
like something cooler we're about to like give her. She just gotta leave that toy here or give it to mommy to put in her purse or whatever. And I think sometimes we're like these 2-year-olds. They're like, no, no, when the adult knows better and has something much more interesting to give us, you know?
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Definitely see that.
Well, normally I talk a lot more on these conversations, um, but I have been enjoying your storytelling and just your cadence in general with how you share things. So I don't have much more to share. We're getting close to the time my wife and daughter will get back in the house. So I think we've covered like everything I wanted to make sure we got talking about. But is there anything that you're like, oh, you didn't ask me about this yet? Or you know what? Now that we're sitting here talking, I really would love to throw this out there before we wind up. Is there anything burning on you like that?
I can't think of anything that we missed or that I wanted to add that we didn't.
Okay. You'll probably think of something afterward.
Yeah, it'll be afterwards.
That always happens to me where I'm editing. I'm like, why didn't I ask this person this and that? But like I
I'll just
said,
blog it if
sure,
so.
sure, yeah. Well, I have no idea how long it'll take before this goes online. It could be weeks. But yeah, I really enjoyed today. I know it's a number of months before your book is out, but your website, what's your link?
Um,
I like to give my
yeah,
guests, whatever it is they write or they're selling or they're doing to
it's
promote it.
yeah, it's amberpicota.com. And I'm having some problems with my website right now, so I don't know if you'll run into any problems with it. I'm in the process of switching over. I think I might have mentioned a little bit of this to you in email, but it's amberpicota.com though. And I'm so overly frustrated with my website right now. I can't even begin to describe you. But my husband he's a web designer and stuff, but he's got his plate full. And so, but I cried. And so now he's going to help me. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. He was going to help me anyways, but I did cry. But I was just overwhelmed because I was just like, it's not working right. And so he's going to be helping me over the next couple of weeks transition from a Wix to WordPress site because right now my page doesn't even load for some people. I don't know if it's loading for you. I can only pray
Yeah,
that it
it's
is.
up.
Okay.
It's showing for
Okay.
me.
Awesome. But I am more familiar with WordPress because I manage Doug Addison's blog as well. And so he does WordPress. And I am having a hard time with going back and forth, back and forth. And I don't know how to do, like, I don't want to learn two platforms. Just like I wouldn't want to have an Android and an Apple at the same time, or Microsoft, whatever it's called. I wouldn't want to have to learn both operating
You don't
systems.
want Apple and crap at the same time. No,
Exactly.
I'm probably offending like the 80% of people listening who use something Apple, or I mean, Windows related. But anyway,
Well, I'm an Apple girl, but I wouldn't want to try to learn both at the same time. So amberpicota.com is my website. That's going to stay the URL, but expect to see some changes for the better, cleaning things up, and overall just making it a better user experience.
right. And I'm on the link right now, and so you've got a link to your church, the Welton Academy, and this has I don't know, maybe you've got something to say about this. What is Spirit Fuel? I just went and signed up. I just went and looked at it,
Yeah,
liked it.
my husband is one of the authors for Spirit Fuel. I have been for a long time, but I haven't added my blogs over there for a while because it's not worth my time at the moment. I just have. It's not that it's not a good platform. It's just that I haven't had the time to do it. But Spirit Fuel is sort of like a modern day Elijah List, if you think of it that way. Um, I like it. I like the bloggers, the platform that they give to bloggers. And basically, any author, anybody can submit an article to them and be approved to be a Spirit Fuel author if you're accepted. And so, a lot of my friends, I've passed on the word to them that they want writing more experience. They want more. A bigger platform to be able to speak that what God has placed on their heart. And so I have quite a few friends that are authors for Spirit Fuel. So you can look at them up on Facebook, and they send out those blogs. And my husband is one of the authors there, and so is Doug Addison is a syndicated author. Hopefully, I just said the right word.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. It's
I'm
very interesting. Worth
yeah.
looking into.
I'm glad I asked you that because I'm also a moderator for a Facebook group for like writers for it's called The Time Is Right, and it's basically for kingdom-minded authors. And this I don't know what might come of this. Maybe some people might be interested in that. I'm going to definitely look at it more. It caught my attention, and I don't normally ask people about the links on their sidebar on their blog, but yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to end the recording anyway. And thank you very much, Amber, for being willing to be on this today. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me on. It was an honor.
Okay, thanks. And goodbye, everybody.
We hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to subscribe to the podcast, you can find us in iTunes or on Stitcher Radio, or directly at fireonyourhead.com for more options. If you want to support Steve and Lily Bremner as missionaries in Peru, or find out more about what they do, be sure to head over to their blog at stevebremner.com, or check out Steve's Kindle books on Amazon and leave reviews of the ones you liked. See you next time.